I noticed that we're really not well disciplined in philosophy and understanding the competing philosophies on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think we would do ourselves a lot of good by starting to understand the motivations of the other side. Like, for example, and there's people in the Jewish community that'll get upset at me, but I'm just telling you what's going on, okay? You take somebody like, well, let's say the crowd that follows Nick Fuentes. Why are they following him? Well, remember I told you before, the Generation Z, that, you know, they're conservative, they don't like Jews, and now they're in their late 20s. It's because they went through, many of them, because I heard this story many, many times. They went through an education system where it became so politically correct and everything was about identity politics that anytime they'd said something or discussed Israel or said something referencing the Jewish community, not even trying to be anti-Semitic, they get yelled and labeled an anti-Semite.
Hi everyone, this is another episode of Golda's Girls, and my name is Caroline van Wassen. I'm a psychologist and relationship coach, and my co-host for today is Rachel Rappaport, who is an entrepreneur and former book publisher. And our special guest today is Benjamin Dichter. Do I pronounce it right? Because I use it as a German word. Well, how would you pronounce your last name?
You were one of the very few people that actually pronounced it right, so well done.
Thank you. Well, I know a pianist. I played with him years ago, and his name is Richter and Dichter. So, and I speak German. So, okay. Yeah, in English, I would not recognize the word. Well, welcome. And I would like Arshel to give a little introduction, please.
Sure. Benjamin Dichter is author, journalist, podcaster, producer, speaker, and prominent figure in Canadian politics and media. He first gained attention as an activist opposing political entry by Muslim Brotherhood affiliated groups in Canadian politics, later becoming a leader in the 2022 Canadian not Tucker.
Yeah,
sorry.
I have the same problem.
Tucker. All right. Canadian trucker convoy protest advocating for free speech and individual rights. Benjamin has a very lengthy and fascinating bio, so I encourage you all to read it. It's
in the description.
In the description. So, first, I want to just welcome you because I'm so delighted to see you here today. We met a few days ago at a very interesting speaker event in Florida. So I'm delighted that you were able to join us. So let's start with something that I think most Americans or many Americans don't know much about, and that is what was happening during COVID in Canada in 2022 with the Freedom Trucker convoy, and also what Jewish people can learn from that experience, that situation. I know that Jordan Peterson interviewed you about it, and that also Douglas Murray mentioned you in a talk about you versus the media. And so I thought that was very interesting. So can you give us a little bit of background on the trucker convoy?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, a little plug. If people want to know in more detail,
right,
you can go to honkingforfreedom.com. And there's a little excerpt on the back, and this is an endorsement that I'm quite proud of. And it reads this: the Canadian trucker protest in Ottawa attracted tremendous national and international attention and was simultaneously demonized by then Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cronies in the legacy media, the minions at the CBC first and foremost among them. What really happened, Benjamin J. Dichter, integrally involved from the beginning, lets his readers in on the story one all Canadians should know, Jordan B. Peterson. So thank you, Jordan, for running that, and I hope I know he's on the mend, so I hope he is well.
Right.
So Canada was a very different experience than in the United States. It was just the advent of totalitarianism in Canada. It was so restrictive into stripping our rights and freedoms away. And we understand that people they don't want to be bothered. They want to get along. They don't want to have friction within society, with their neighbors and their family and their government. But, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve in Canada became 2 years of totalitarian hell. And it was showing no signs of letting up. And leading up to the trucker convoy, it was 3 or 4 weeks prior to the first days of the convoy that there was another round of lockdowns that were imposed on us. And those lockdowns were, infused by the provincial government. That was a conservative government. So when I try to tell people, this is not a red versus blue, left versus right. This is about people and their individual freedoms and a political structure that was just blatantly incompetent, in over their heads, that really didn't know how to deal with this. So the solution was always, okay, just lock people down and destroy their businesses. And that's what led to the trucker convoy. It was 2 years of this going on. It's not like, a few weeks and everybody got upset. It was 2 years of really financial and economic hell for a lot of people in Canada. And they were at their wits' end. And that's why they decided to engage in this protest and bring attention to it around the world. And it was very interesting that after the protest, it was supposed to be a super spreader event. It was not a super spreader event. And then shockingly, after 3-4 weeks, all of a sudden, all these governments around the world decided to lift their COVID lockdown restrictions, which, I had run for parliament before, so I knew a lot of people in our political structure. And I remember the early days of COVID in Canada. I was out for coffee with a member of parliament who I'm friendly with. And I said, what's going on? I don't understand. Why is, the leader at that time, why is he engaged in this stuff? Like, what, he's not listening to people? And he said, you know how the system works. You know how politics works, a lobby structure and all that. The leader, in this case, Doug, is not listening to us. He's taking advice from people that are outside our party, not listening to the constituents. So I said, okay, so this is just political. He says, yep. And we don't know why. And so that's how everything started. The good news is we got through the protest. We were there for 3 weeks. There were protests in 40 countries that were mimicking our protests. And it really seemed to be the catalyst that led to us being free once again. And God bless you, Americans, who understand the virtues and the importance of freedom like no other country in the world. So very, very thankful to you for that, because we got so much support from the US.
That's good to know, because not everybody is was on the same page so much. But I still remember very much what happened there. But I remember too is that they wanted to go so far, the Canadian government, to freeze the bank accounts of you guys.
All of my accounts were frozen, my credit cards, my lines of credit, my insurance, absolutely everything. And by the way, not only were we, myself being Jewish, labeled a neo-Nazi, I'm also vaccinated. And they didn't want to, you should have seen the look from the media when I was asked on one platform, why won't you get vaccinated? I was like, no, I'm vaccinated. That's not what this is about. This is about freedom of choice.
Yeah,
people have the ability to decide what they do for themselves, right?
Yeah. Well, that's phenomenal. I really appreciate that. Yeah, because
how long was it? Were your assets frozen?
Mine were 8 days, and that was most people. Most people was within a week, but there were a couple of companies that I guess were not friendly politically that had accounts frozen for 2, 3, 4 months, and it bankrupted those companies.
That's unbelievable.
What a power!
Yeah, but and a very interesting twist there. So I write for a number of publications, one of which being Zero Hedge, who covered this before I started writing for them. And what was interesting was I knew this would happen. When our accounts were frozen, I sent a letter to the CEO of my banks and CC'd a bunch of lawyers and just gently asked politely, why are my accounts frozen? And I finally got a letter several weeks later in the month of March saying, and if you read between the lines, which you have to do with, legal letters like that, they basically inferred that they didn't want to. This was at the behest of the government. So I held on to that message from the CEO of one of my banks, and I waited until the government finally had their subcommittee hearing on freezing bank accounts. And what did they try to do? They tried to blame the banks. Oh, the banks did it on their own accord. We didn't demand that they do it. This was Christopher Friedland. And thank you to Daily Wire and to Zero Hedge for helping me publish the letter from the CEO of the bank explaining that no. Doesn't matter what they say in committee. We are not in the business of freezing bank accounts. The government is, and we had no choice.
Yeah. They are not even honest about it. Bizarre.
That's right.
Bizarre. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Well, amazing, Kollegavot, that you did that. And what we understood is that the situation in Canada with the growing anti-Semitism, but maybe more becoming visible, the anti-Semitism that always was there. What are lesser known forces that are contributed to the growth of anti-Semitism?
Yeah, it's an issue that I debate with people in the Jewish community, fighting anti-Semitism. And I always, people get uncomfortable with it, but it's my perspective and my experience in politics. Anti-Semitism is the symptom, and we're trying to treat a symptom. We need to go after the core of the issue. You need to cut the cancer out in order to fix the symptoms. And in the case of Canada, we've been suffering such a extreme degree of political entryism by proxies, organizations, activists that are tied to the Muslim Brotherhood money that has been smuggled and laundered into Canada at mass and has now entered the political structure and is funding many of these protests that are there specifically to target Jews. Why? Because the Jewish community is the tool that they use to divide and conquer the West. We see people that are taking the bait. Those are the people that I reach out to. The people I was with earlier today, it was amazing. I'm going to share an exclusive with you today. They started, when I met them, big supporters of mine, big supporters of the trucker convoy, but a couple of them there were bought into, the Jews control the world, the Jews control the money, the Jews control the media, all that sort of stuff. And this is what I've been advocating the Jewish community to stop with the name calling and stop telling people they're wrong and engage with them and persuade them over. Well, the last time I saw this individual about 6 months ago, he had evolved from that earlier state to giving me a hug and saying, hey, man, I'm so embarrassed. You were so right. It's not Israel or the Jews that's the problem. I get it now. It's Islamic terrorism. It's all these people that are coming here that are trying to use you to destroy us. And you know what he said today when we had a little conversation? This is how much he's evolved. He said to me, and this guy's American, knows nothing about the Middle East. And he knows a little bit now, right? But he said to me, honestly, I think Israel should just take over the whole Middle East. So I've managed to get somebody from not liking the Jews in Israel to not only am I on your side, but you guys are the solution, should take over the whole region. This is what I argue to the Jewish community. This is our opportunity to reach those people. If we use persuasive tactics, we can bring them on board, and that's what will bring us all together, which is what I was trying to do during the trucker convoy, to get people left, right, center, libertarian, objectivist, doesn't matter, but make it everybody can engage and understand, and we can fight the battle together.
So that sounds so interesting. So please give us a few examples, share your styles, because that's so needed.
Yeah, we touched on that subject a few days ago when we met, about the art of persuasion. So it would be great to hear some suggestions.
It's something I've been learning for many, many, many years. It's not easy, but basically there is the persuasion toolbox of many different things you can use. And I'll give you a couple of examples. But what you don't do is you don't use the word don't. You don't tell people they're wrong, and you don't list off a bunch of facts. because facts do
Absolutely.
not persuade people.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of something I did in Canada. This was before the trucker convoy. I took my small business skills and started applying it to politics and fighting the jihadis, and that's kind of how I got into this. So we had Al-Quds Day, which is the protest. The Iranians fund a protest, which is, they'll go out in the street and gas the Jews, gas Israel. That's their celebration, right?
Yeah.
So one year, there was one of the organizations that was going to have a counter protest, and it was the same thing always. Tell them they're wrong, list of facts. And I'm like, people are not going to listen. They don't care about facts. So just dismiss your data.
Yeah.
So I said, I have a different idea. The idea that I have is if they want to celebrate rape, murder, and torture, let's help them celebrate rape, murder, and torture. I'll make some banners. I'll do a yellow Comic Sans font. We'll make it look like a birthday sort of look. And then we'll have, some contrasting images to show what they do to people. And that's how we'll persuade. And to their credit, they said, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's give it a try. So that year at Al-Quds Day, when you looked at it, you saw the jihadis on one side. And in every picture, no matter what angle you took with, you would see a whole bunch of happy Al-Quds Day celebrating rape, murder, and torture since 1979. It made them look ridiculous and comical. And I checked in the media that year, the next day, the legacy media, for the first time ever, no one covered it. Oh. And the alternative media, like, the subway, the communist sort of, pamphlets like Now Magazine that would always cover it, there were only 3 articles, and they were all neutral in tone. That is what a win looks like. Because the legacy media couldn't cover it. They couldn't use it as propaganda because they looked so ridiculous. That's the type of things that I try to do, as opposed to just listing a bunch of facts. And in the persuasion toolbox, of which there are many, there are things, common ones that you see is repetition, social proof, the opportunities gap, common cause, kind of having a common area of interest, empathy. There's so many things that you do, reframing that you do that get people to understand your framing of the world, and that's what we don't do. Anybody who understands, we understand on our side. We have a certain frame of the world of Israel that is embedded in Western values. So it should be the easiest thing in the world to sell to people. And guess what? It is, because that's what I do with people outside the Jewish community. But we don't utilize this strategy to help them reframe and see the world through our eyes. We automatically, and there's reasons for it, we automatically go to anger, outrage, call them a name, and then list a bunch of facts. And if they don't list them, say they're anti-Semitic. Well, that's the best way to drive somebody in the opposite direction. Yeah. And I've long been advocating we need to do the opposite.
Yeah. I like that you say that. I have an ebook about 3 easy tips to be heard. And one of them is the elephant and the rider, that you find first common ground. And then from there, you also don't like apartheid, right? I understand. It's terrible what happened in South Africa. Well, Israel. No, Israel's not apartheid. Why not? Da, da, da. So if you first go together on agreeing something, that is so helpful. And what I notice often too is that people say right away, you don't get it. You don't understand. And if you start with that, it is a very annoying way of having a conversation, because you attack the other person instead of saying, maybe I wasn't clear. Let me explain it in a different way. This kind of communication, that's what people do daily already in that way. One of my friends
that's right.
is a psychiatrist. Yeah.
We do these things naturally. Things like mockery, mirroring, social proof, appeal to authority, thinking past the sale. What's called the really framing, like really, you believe that? Pregnant pauses, storytelling, anchoring. Like these are all the things that we do to bring people, and it is a slow process. And I think what we want, because of the society we live in of instant gratification, we want to press one button and have somebody's mind changed. That's not how human beings work. So what I would do is I would get somebody, help them reframe their experience and understand my world of the view, not attack them. I would legitimize what they think and say, I agree. There's also another way to looking at it, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And, I'll get them on board. I'll get them thinking.
Yeah.
And then they'll go back to their friends. They'll be reset to factory default settings. And then I'll do it with them again. But the next time it gets a little bit easier every time. And then eventually they understand the world as we understand it.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Islamists, they are doing this too.
Yeah.
I have now found over the past month, I have found where they are learning persuasion tactics and they're being trained in it. So
Where?
they understand me in Canada, in particularly in Canada.
Wow.
They understand our psychology and the psychology of people in the West and how to manipulate it, and to an expert level, which is what we need to do. And I should disclose, sometimes people think it's a little weird. There's a very famous podcaster, influencer, or figure by the name of Scott Adams, who I connected with after the trucker convoy and whatever. Both Scott Adams and I are trained hypnotists. Mm-hmm. So this is not speculation of, this is how I think the human brain works.
No.
This is how it works. And I was touching on some of these tactics during the trucker convoy, which is what made it go global.
Yeah, well, I can totally see that.
That's so interesting. I'm thinking about, and I don't know, maybe you're too young to know who this is. Were you familiar with the prominent Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan of the 60s?
I know the name, but I don't know anything about him.
Okay, he coined the phrase, the medium is the message, and talking about how that it really influences people's perception and human behavior, and how it's easy to manipulate. Like, you just look at TikTok and the influence of TikTok. A lot of people, like young people, don't read anymore. They just get these little sound bites. And it seems like there's like this mass hypnosis with the slogans like "From the River to the Sea" and "Free Palestine." So these people are saying all this stuff, and they don't even know what it means. But it's kind of like there's an incredible mass hypnosis that these people are just falling into this pattern. People who are not critical thinkers.
And you're exactly right. And here's a perfect example. The Free Palestine, or I call it Palpatine as a joke, but the Free Palpatine movement will say they are anchoring their idea to freedom. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take the American dominance over the word freedom and apply it to themselves. That's why the best way to kill it, as the comedian Sponder says, "Free Palestine, okay, it's free, we take it," right? Because then that pulls away all the power. But the point is, they're associating one of the most basic emotional triggers for many people, positive triggers, or framing the word freedom, and they're applying it to themselves and hijacking it and anchoring. Okay, what is the emotional word that is anchored to Israel? Go.
Zion is horrible people.
Well, the point is, there's no positive emotional word associated with Israel, like the word freedom is associated with American culture.
Yeah,
that's
colonists.
They are defining it for us.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example of a campaign that is known all over the world of this type of hypnotic NLP anchoring, whatever you want to call. And that is the campaign, I Heart New York. I love, with the heart in it, New York. Because that associated the word love with the city of New York, when the city was one of the worst cities, crime-ridden cities in the United States. It willed the idea into existence by using what is by far the most used word on the internet for positive emotional framing, love. It is searched more than any other word and by a mile.
Yeah.
So why don't we use that to define what Israel is? No, what we do is we use a war to define what Israel is. Or we say, it's a tech startup or tech nation, startup nation. Well, what does that mean? There are people who don't like startups. So now already you're not appealing to everybody like the word love appeals to everyone. And if you want to experience love in the Middle East, there's one country that will allow you to do it, and that's Israel.
Right.
So what is your word for instead, like the Palestinians, they have freedom hijacked? What is your word, an emotional word you would indicate to Israel?
Well, I would try to use love as much as possible and reframe, because if any time we do this all the time, because the Jewish community, we have a strength and a weakness, and that's this. Now, this is broadly. This is not individual. Individually, we have all sorts of people, but broadly, the Jewish community, in my experience, and I tested this recently with some very wealthy, influential non-Jewish people who work with the Jewish community all over the world. And they all seem to agree with me and I experienced this when I try to, advocate with among Jews. Jews generally, we have the reputation of being skilled in business, skilled in law, skilled in certain academic disciplines, which is all true. And it's because we're linear thinkers broadly, right? Here's my product. This is what I got to do to sell it. This is my margin. This is my outcome. Here is the case and the set of charges. This is what I got to present to the court, and this is going to be the outcome. The problem is the people on, the left, and you see this a lot in Silicon Valley, they are systems thinkers. Mm-hmm. They don't think linearly. Mm-hmm. So the way I look at our problem is Israel is just one small cog, one gear in a very intricate system that's being utilized to destroy the West. That's why I don't get emotional about when people are anti-Semitic, the Jews do this, whatever, because I know that's part of a system, and I know that's what they're trying to do, right? We need to evolve out of the linear thinking model to fight this battle and look at it as a broader system. Russell Ackoff has got many lectures on systems thinking. And if we look from the 50,000-foot view that's how we fight this battle, we're going to be a lot more successful than just trying to, fight anti-Semitism, because those are opinions that have been primed to people that are not their opinions. They've just been assigned their opinions. Well, guess what? They always talk about the tabula rasa on the radical left. Well, why aren't we assigning opinions back to them? We can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is like a double negative. Fight anti-Semitism. How do you do that? Do you start to love Jews more? That's what I often think, because it is such a negative phrase. And you're not going to love Jews more because you have so much Holocaust education. That's not what it does. That doesn't help. Yeah, I know also. I've also studied a lot of NLP, and I'm also a hypnotherapist. So I'd love to hear how you phrase that. Yeah, interesting to hear that from you. And it is so true. The words, people do not often realize how it comes out of their mouth. That awareness is great. So I would love to do a little bit more with that. Yeah, I love Israel. I would say that. But the equivalent of freedom for Palestine is that makes people like that good-hearted people. Yeah, I want that. Of course, I want freedom for them because I don't like suppression. But what do we do with Israel? How can we shift that and turn that around? Because what would you say about that?
Well, it's going to need a broad campaign that is well funded. I mean, like I have a startup, right? And the startup is not about Israel. It's broadly, I mean, it's in the podcast space, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to understand a completely different set of worldviews that people have not considered. So, for example, one of my podcasters is Professor Stephen Hicks. And if you don't know him, when Jordan Peterson talks about postmodernism, postmodernist theory, him, Gad Saad, Hyde, they all talk about postmodernism. That's Stephen's work. They're all citing his basic body of work, which was his PhD. And the idea is if people understand that that's the era and the framing that we live in, now everything's not so scary. That's why it was so easy for me to predict Justin Trudeau during the trucker convoy in politics, because I know his philosophy better than he does. And then the other element is, so we're trying to build, our series of podcasts are on that and false accusations, things that stem out of the postmodern era. And at the same time, we have an AI model, and this is what we're trying to get funding for. And the AI model, I think you would know as well, I know how to get an AI model to de-radicalize people over time, which is what we need to do, and we need to do that at scale.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
We are behind we are 40 years behind, and we need to catch up very quickly. And I remember my business, before trucking, my business was on one of the main university campuses in Toronto. And I saw the switch in 2012. It's like somebody turned on a switch and everybody, the faculty, the students, all became collective. Postmodern victimization narrative was everywhere. And I remember talking to people who are, donors in Canada to a lot of Jewish causes and Jewish organizations, and telling them that, Generation Z, or you guys would call it Generation Z, right, they are not all woke, radical, left wing. Many of them are very, very conservative. They're very libertarian conservative, and they've been trained to hate Jews and hate Israel. We are going to have a very big problem when these 16 and 17-year-olds are 27. We need to do something now, and we didn't, and look where we are.
Yeah.
That's so frightening, what's happening in the schools and in Canada and the United States, and the, all the brainwashing. One of the things I want to ask you about was the status of the Muslim Brotherhood in Canada. And also you were talking about Latin America.
Yeah, they're all over. Okay, so the latter is the good news. I'll get to that in a second. But they are all over Canada. They are in our institutions. They're in our government. They're in our police forces. They're everywhere. And, anyone else who is not Brotherhood, like I have a brother who's a police officer, a couple of nephews who are police officers, and a lot of friends who are cops, ironically, during the trucker convoy. How do you think I knew everything that was going on?
Yeah.
Are idiots in government. But the degree of political entryism from the Muslim Brotherhood and their various proxies and cutouts is unsurpassed in Canadian history, to the point that they're really dictating the direction of the country, and that's where all the DEI policies come from, right, within Canada. And unfortunately, we in our community, because we're all suffering this degree of collective PTSD because we see another Holocaust coming around the corner, we freak out, we don't know what to do, so we want to implement new policies that are free speech restrictions. Well, guess what? We did that in the 90s. We helped bring in hate speech laws in Canada, and now what's happened? Well, in the very near future, they're already planting the seed for this, that if you advocate for Israel, that will be considered hate speech. That's what happens when we keep, again, linear thinking leads to not understanding unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Systems thinking does. And that's the position we've put ourselves in. And now there's a number of, there was this bill, C-69, that's been divided up into two bills. One part of it just passed. And thank God Scott Adams helped bring attention to this when I got it on his radar. We had Bill C-69 just before Trudeau left. And Bill C-69 was the thought crime bill. And again, we're scared, we're freaking out, we think the government's the solution to all our problems. So what do? There was this Bill C-69 that basically said, and it wasn't in legalese, it was in regular language, that if somebody perceives that you may possibly say something that could be hurtful in the future, you could be charged and potentially imprisoned for life.
Wow.
Think about that, for life. And and who was advocating for that? CIJA, the Canadian Institute of Jewish Affairs, which regularly involves in government, was arguing for this because, people say bad things about Jews. I don't like it either. But there's one benefit when the jihadis chant, their nonsense about the Jews. At least we can see the problem now. That's why free speech is important. We can see the problem, identify the bad actors, and we can respond. But the Canadian strategy has always been prevent anybody from speaking anymore, and it blows up in our face.
Yeah, wow, it is shocking. So I would like to get back a little bit. What can we do? Because the freedom, I find it very great how you phrase that, the freedom Palestine word. And we can speak about Israel love, but when people, how can we make that association better? Because your movement is great. I would love to know more about it to begin with. But how can we do that like everywhere? Because so many Jews have to do this instead of taking shooting lessons, what a lot of Jews do too.
Which I do too, yes.
Including myself. My sons forced me to. My sons
Good for you.
I want a pink gun, I told them already. But and I was never thinking that I would. But what can we do? Because we need to do so much more. We are with so many people, so few people against such a large platform. And being Dutch, I mean, it's hard for me to speak with most of my friends because they are so brainwashed. It's just terrible.
One of my closest friends is Dutch. He moved to Colombia, where I used to live. And the reason he moved there is because he kept getting mugged and jumped by the diversity people that came to his country, moved into Amsterdam. And because he's 6'5", blonde, blue eyes, and a trophy for them, he regularly got stabbed and attacked, and he had to leave and move to Colombia to be safe. So I'm completely sympathetic with that.
We went to Florida.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not something we can learn right away, but we need to learn to reframe our experience to the rest of the world. Stop calling, like, I never use the word anti-Semitism, almost never. I try never to use the word Jews or Israel. I try to separate from that and then start talking about freedoms and the values of the West and bring people into my frame and have them understand that that's what Israel is, that Israel is at the front line of the fight with theocratic authoritarianism, meaning global jihad, and they're the only country that is kinetically involved and doing what we all want our own countries to do.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to get people to see that, but when they can, slowly they'll start to turn. So I've actually had a number of people ask me about teaching this.
Yeah.
And, kind of a basic level. And you'll understand some of this if you have a background in hypnotherapy, because there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
But I have been asked to come down to Florida and maybe put together a weekend seminar and rent out one of the places and just, coach and teach a weekend long of what are the things that I've done that works that we can start doing at scale within our community with people who are not Jewish. How do we communicate to them? That might be a start. I don't know if we're going to do that, but it's something that I've considered.
Yeah, and even on Zoom, something is to be done already. It's so great. Yeah. If you don't mind, I would like to send you my little ebook. It's like a few pages with the 3 techniques that I use. I'm a trainer as well in nonviolent communication, but I love the idea of a little handout with those rephrasing sentences. I think Stand With Us has that too in a way, and that is so very helpful, because I so agree with you. A lot of Jews don't dare to defend themselves or start to go with the other side because they want to be liked and loved. Still, they cannot handle the aggression, and it is so important, indeed, to have to feel good at what you say and that you're not getting emotionally attacked so bad. Most of the attacks are like really called psychic attacks, right? They're so harsh. And that's the great opportunity for us now. And thank you for sharing this so much, because it's very important.
I think it's also important. Like, one of the reasons I was very excited when I started doing the podcast with Stephen, who's a world-renowned philosophy professor, I noticed that we're really not well disciplined in philosophy and understanding the competing philosophies on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think we would do ourselves a lot of good by starting to understand the motivations of the other side. Like, for example, and there's people in the Jewish community that'll get upset at me, but I'm just telling you what's going on, okay? You take somebody like, well, let's say the crowd that follows Nick Fuentes. Why are they following him? Well, remember I told you before, the Generation Z, that, you know, they're conservative, they don't like Jews, and now they're in their late 20s. It's because they went through, many of them, because I heard this story many, many times. They went through an education system where it became so politically correct and everything was about identity politics that anytime they said something or discussed Israel or said something referencing the Jewish community, not even trying to be anti-Semitic, they get yelled and labeled an anti-Semite. And, you know,
Yeah.
the first few times they're like, okay, what did I do wrong? And then when they finally know, I don't hate anybody, what is this going on? Then eventually, what do you fuel? You fuel what's called reciprocal radicalization, which is what we've, you know, it's not us on our own, but we have not helped ourselves by attacking people and saying, as one person told me many years ago, finding anti-Semitism around any corner.
Yeah.
And that is a difficult pill for many of us to swallow, and I understand that. But that's just the reality of what has helped contribute to some of these kids that were lost and predisposed for anger, didn't know what to turn to, and they get labeled. And there's a friend of mine from the UK, perfect example, about 6 months ago, got a very big platform, very eloquent, intellectual, social conservative, doesn't really care about Israel. You know, he's kind of connecting it now and understanding that Israel's on the front line of the jihad threat. But he called me up one day and he said, mate, I got to ask you a question. I don't know what I said, and I don't remember the details, but he said, I said something, and then all these people are now calling me anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Semitic. I don't really care. Like, I'm not against Jews. I'm British. I want to protect England. And I'm like, look, you have to, I said, this was my advice to you. You have to, and understand why, you have to treat the Jewish community as though we have collective PTSD.
Yeah.
And I said, remember, my grandparents' generation, most of them were slaughtered in death camps. We were raised from a young age to understand the implications of it. We were never taught, though, that that was the government, which is a big problem. But we were warned that this could rear its head again. And now we're in the scenario where all these jihadis are here. They're doing the same thing. No one will listen to us. And if we say anything, then we get the radical left saying, you know, you're anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim or that sort of thing. So I said, we as a community are dealing with a lot emotionally, and we haven't figured out really how to fight, which is what I'm trying to help people with, the whole persuasion thing. And he says to me, he sits back, and I saw him on the Zoom, he says, mate, oh my God, that helps. That makes so much sense. Now I understand. He said, I didn't mean anything anti-Semitic, but now I understand why. And I said to him, the art of communication is not what you say, it's what you say is received.
Yeah.
And that's why calling people names blows up in our face.
Yeah.
That's also, there's something else, you know, we talked about persuasion tools, just one more thing on that. Remember, linear thinkers, problem, solution, outcome. This makes me crazy. I hear it all the time. They'll start with, okay, this will be an advocate for Israel. I saved a few of them for today. Because, you know, the establishment is helping people try to advocate for Israel, but they're still trying to find their footing. And the video starts with, they say that Israel is committing genocide, and that Israel is doing A, B, C, and listing off all the fabricated assertions. Now, Carla, what happens to the subconscious mind when somebody repeats
You take it in, you believe
assertion?
it becomes yours. Absolutely.
So we are helping them believe the assertion by repeating it. You notice when Donald Trump, who's actually very good at persuasion, whether you like him or not, that's not what I'm saying here. but just as an exercise in salesmanship and persuasion. You notice he never repeats the assertion. He says, they say I'm a bad guy. They say mean things about me. He keeps it very ambiguous, but never repeats the claim. But because we are intellectual and academic, we feel that, well, if we just dissect it like an academic paper, that will change people's minds. Carla, how good is the subconscious mind at absorbing a negative idea?
So good because it doesn't think. It just takes
Exactly.
in. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
unable to process it.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of damage to ourselves as well when we're trying to advocate, because we're not speaking to their emotions. We're not speaking to their frame of the world emotionally and showing we understand why you're frustrated. So are we.
Yeah.
Let me show you why we have
Yeah.
the same frustrations.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Brilliant. Yeah. Love it. So needed. And it's so great to hear this from you. And
Well, thank you.
be
I
continued.
appreciate it.
To be continued.
To
Rachel,
be continued.
you have something, you have another question?
Excuse me. Well, one of the things I want to ask you about, I had lunch with a friend the other day,
Yeah.
and I told her that I had met you and that we were talking about the art of persuasion. And also she said, well, ask him about hypnosis. And she said something about Putin. I don't know if you know what she's talking about, because I don't know, because she said, ask him about this. And
Interesting.
so do you know what I'm talking about? Which I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just referring to the thing that she said to me.
Firstly, is she watching?
You don't know.
Be watching?
She will be. She will be watching.
So I have a rough idea of what she's saying. We probably have come to similar conclusions. So firstly, Putin was, as you know, well known, a KGB spy. They are all taught persuasion, manipulation. Okay, they all understand this science, and because that's how they recruit spies, which is completely deconstructing their view of the world and rebuilding them as somebody who becomes an ally to them. But more importantly, I don't know if she knows this, but the person who I'm going to mention later, which is Alexander Dugin.
Right, that's what she was talking about, and the name escapes me. Yeah, that's who she was referring to.
A dog just showed up. Hi, doggy.
Lovely, lovely.
Basically quiet. He's usually a part of.
He likes the topic.
Yes.
He's reframing his mind.
I think it's the neighbor's dog, and they allow the neighbor's dog to come in and out of the house, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, so Alexander Dugin, he is the woke right. He created the woke right. That's his idea. This is why you see people like Tucker Carlson, or that realm of people, and this is why understanding philosophy is important. Their philosophy is radical left. His father was in the GRU. He holds those collectivist views as well. And what they've done is they've taken the communist/collectivist model of the world, and they've overlaid Christianity on that as a recruitment tool to pace and lead them into this dystopian collectivist view, but calling it Christianity or conservatism. It's anything but. It's radical leftism, okay? And this is where you get the anti-Semitic, the same anti-Semitic messaging out of what we call the woke right and the woke left. They're both woke left.
Like the horseshoe. The horseshoe,
exactly.
like this. Yeah.
But what I didn't know until one of my last hypnosis classes with my instructor, and I found this out from somebody I know who's Russian, who really knows this file really well. Did you know that Alexander Dugin is a trained hypnotist?
No, but it doesn't surprise me.
And not just a trained hypnotist, He may be one of the best hypnotists since Milton Erickson himself.
Oh, wow.
That's why Putin sees so much value in him. And for example, Carla, I'll ask you this question. I know the answer.
Be careful with your questions, because if I don't know the answer,
you will know. I promise you, the softball, you'll know it. But I want everybody to understand it too. If you have a subject who is primed, who has rapport with you, and is willing to listen to a reframe of the world, and you have them alone for 1 hour, what can you make them believe?
a lot of things they usually don't believe.
Just about
Totally
anything
changing.
you want.
Yeah, that's a better answer. Just about anything, indeed. Unfortunately.
So
Almost.
Alexander Dugin these are the people Alexander Dugin has met with personally. Lauren Southern, Lauren Chen, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Tim Pool, there's a few others. The names are escaping me.
Candace Owens.
Candace Owens' husband, Farmer, Andrew Tate, who now has a hypnotist by his side. All of these people who are espousing this nonsense online, they all have met with Dugin. And Tucker Carlson, in particular, spent 8 hours with Dugin alone in a room. Nobody knows what they talked about.
Oh.
What do you think they did?
Oh.
That Dugin influenced a lot of the crazy rhetoric that's coming out of Tucker's mouth, and also the type of people that he interviews, asking questions, just asking questions,
Yes, and if you look at, remember the video when Tucker was in Russia, and he had the shopping carts. Oh, look at the shopping carts! You can put a quarter in it, and he looked ridiculous. Look at him again. He's in trance.
Wow.
That's so great. Wow, there's a lot of work. I'm getting very inspired, because we need to do things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And the other more concerning thing, you asked me about the Muslim Brotherhood. Online, when I see people that are certain networks, it just become a habitual, just to do a sweep on certain people who might be suspect and a concern to us. I can now point to, I could even put together a report. The Muslim Brotherhood activists, they're learning hypnosis.
Oh, wow.
Well, Hitler himself did also this kind of things. And I know about Jews that were standing in the group, and they also started to raise their hand. It was like, they were in it totally.
Yep.
Mass hypnosis.
Yeah, exactly.
Mass hypnosis. Yeah. Well, there's work for us to do.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do the same, but we want
But now that we know the problem and we know what to do, it's a matter of just teaching other people how to do it. Yeah. There's people like myself building startups that hopefully will help address some of the, cultural problems we're dealing with in the Jewish community and out of the Jewish community, and we're not the only ones. And I'll tell you something that's positive. When I was very much involved with this Muslim Brotherhood research with an intelligence analyst I worked with and some other people, almost a decade ago now, nobody wanted to hear it. Everybody plugged their ears. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. They're going to call me names. But now the number of people that are curious and want to know, the thirst for knowledge, I never could have imagined we're at the state we're at, to the point that when I left Toronto, I got to go back to Toronto for a meeting with old school, really old school liberals in Canada that are now talking to me and saying, okay, we kind of understand there's a problem. What can we do? What can you help with? How can we help you, sort of thing?
Yeah.
So there are people across the board that are getting concerned, Jewish and not Jewish. They want the craziness to stop. We just want to go back to being normal and having differences of opinion, but being able to speak with each other. And none of them have any tolerance for this, the radical extremism, the Islamist extremism that has been infused into Canada that's attacking Jews and non-Jews. They're all done with it, and they want a solution. So we are in so much better footing than we were 10 years ago. I could only dream of us being in such a positive position like we are right now. Because now people are ready to fight.
We need to get Tony Robbins Award for doing some work there because he has such a following. That's amazing. Well, thank you so very much. It is so interesting to listen to you. And I really will put all those links underneath, of course. I don't dare to say the word anti-Semite of the week anymore. And I don't, but our hater of the week, let me call it like that. That is more specific then. Because
you know what, you want to know what I call it?
No.
It's a little crass. But you understand the empowered of, emotional bindings to words. I call it the Jew fetish.
I love it.
Why do I call it a Jew fetish? Because nobody wants to be known for having a fetish.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they are.
Right.
Yeah. That's such a negative connotation. That's good. Right. Can I borrow it? Can I steal it from you?
Of course, please, go ahead. Yes.
So your Jew fetish of the week is, Rachel.
Okay. Well, it's 200 celebrities who signed the petition for the release of Marwan Barghouti, who has blood on his hands, murdered people, Palestinian, and of course, Paul Simon. What the heck?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all those other celebrities, one thing, but Paul Simon, I don't get it. It's beyond me. So those 200 people who signed that petition.
Thank you. And Benjamin, your Jew fetish or fetished of the week.
Somebody we've mentioned already, Alexander Dugin, because he doesn't get nearly enough attention for the chaos that he has caused. And it's time for us to be laser focused on explaining what he is, because that way we can inoculate younger people that are falling victim to this woke right nonsense.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm a bit more recent with my choice, and I choose Naveed Akram, the Pakistani guy that is still alive, who together with his father plotted this. And he has also videos that people could see circulating, almost promising what's going to happen. So yeah, unfortunately, I want to point him out. So now let's go to the good news. Rachel.
So I related to that story. I picked Ahmad al-Ahmed, the Muslim originating from Syria, who was the hero who went to attack the shooter in Sydney, Australia at Bondi Beach. It took a lot of courage. The guy was just he owns a fruit shop in Sydney. Just a regular guy, Muslim, and he did this amazing, courageous thing. And he was in the hospital. He's recovering. He got shot, but I think he's amazing for doing what he did.
Great example, a positive example. It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, I want to call you Boris. I don't know where that comes from.
You were talking about Putin, maybe?
I don't know, the Boris. So you're a hidden spy.
Do I look like a Boris?
Do I see there something? Okay, Benjamin, what is your hit? No, you're hidden. Okay, Benjamin, what is your hero for this week?
My two heroes for this week are Carla and Rachel. Those are my heroes.
Rachel.
And Rochelle, sorry. And I'll tell you why Carla and Rochelle are are the heroes of the week. There's a lot of politics within the Jewish community around the world, and particularly here in Canada. And there's a political establishment that's often very confused, and they don't understand why people and myself and others, sometimes we align with them, sometimes we don't, but it doesn't mean we're a threat. They're not we may have different approaches, no matter where you're on the political spectrum. We need to be able to allow each person in each group to resonate with their audiences, which may be different than other people's audience. That's how we're going to win the fight. And I was I'm very pleased that you would have me on your forum to explain that we all gotta, work together even when we may cross swords a little bit, but that's good. That's healthy because the world needs to see there's a diverse range of opinions amongst Jews, because when they don't see that, they think we are a collective and they treat us like a collective. The Jews think X. And we need to show that there's diverse conversation amongst us, which is why I was very excited to come and speak with you. So because of the two of you doing that, you are not just heroes, you are free speech heroes. And I thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful compliment, right, Rochelle?
Yes,
That's so nice. Well, having that said, I have actually two heroes too, not us. But that's the couple. But that's probably how I got to the Boris. But Boris and Sophia Gurman, that were the ones that tried to catch the shooter and got killed, which I think is amazing. If you don't have weapons in your hand and you still try to do something. And that's amazing. And the other one is a bit on a lighter hand, and his name is Yechiel Jacobs. And he's a comedian. He's extremely funny, to my opinion. Also,
he's hysterical.
He's hysterical.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah.
I saw a video today, but he was making fun of a girl with pink hair that started to say, "I'm Jewish." And he said, "Yeah, you have a problem with the genocide. I see that, but your hairdresser is genocidal." But it was like so funny. I put it on Jewish Forum on Instagram. We have Jewish Forum. I reposted there. And he's also an influencer, and he's very funny. And that's so great that we keep the humor there too. But I'm actually very excited what you said today, Benjamin, about this is giving me really hope. And I start to think right away, what can I do more about using the hypnosis and the hypnotism? Because the words are so powerful, and that's a very good idea. And I think we need to create a big group with that, or a big platform, or whatever it is. I mean, that needs to get out there.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to build negative frames of the world. The skill is building positive frames. And this is what I tried to show during, remember Honking for Freedom.com?
Yeah, there.
Get it at Amazon today. You'll get it within 24 hours.
I will do it. I will order it.
It'll make you cry, I promise. Because it's not very political. It's mostly the positive stories of us coming together. And that's the point, that instead of taking the bait and arguing amongst a false frame that's been constructed for us, we can do what I tried to do in Ottawa, is build a positive frame and a positive way forward. Because when you can get people into that positive sense of where we're at, I know people think it's woo-woo. No, it doesn't mean we know there's a lot of negativity in the world. There are problems. But, during the convoy, for example, and another thing I was involved in politically, I spent so many days, people coming to me with anxiety. Why? Because they're living in the future. And I had to spend a lot of time helping to reframe and show them, look, the sun's up today. It's a beautiful day out. It just snowed. And guess what? It's going to go down and the sun is going to come up tomorrow, and we'll be able to reset. There is this exercise, this reframing exercise I really enjoy, that I think we would benefit a lot in the Jewish community, because you can't fight from a state of anxiety. You need to be calm. You need to be able to laugh and think things through. And it was popularized in a book called The 5-Minute Journal. And the idea is, you know it. You wake up and you ask yourself 3 questions. 1, what are 3 things I'm grateful for? Why? And it sounds woo-woo, but the idea is to get yourself out of a negative state away from anxiety into a state of gratitude. Because when you're in a state of gratitude, boy, does it become easy to solve problems. Then you assign yourself 3 things for the day to make the day an amazing day, and you do some affirmations. I think to deal with the collective PTSD. We talked about that. I think if more of us did that, and we are more in a state of gratitude as we're seeing some of the chaos going on, then we're going to become more strategic thinkers, and we'll be able to, within our own individual networks, carefully thread the needle we need to reach people who are unable to reach right now to get them to listen.
I love what you say, and I disagree with you with one thing, and that's the use
What's
of
that?
the word woo-woo.
I
Because
know.
honestly, honestly, what you said there is so effective with depression and anxiety too, but
For
depression
sure.
or a
Yep.
depression thing. I do it not like you three. I tell my clients, I don't call them patients, I call them clients because I respect people that they want to work on themselves and make their life better. So I
Yeah.
don't find you a patient. Anyway, I give it like 5 when they go to sleep, just before they go to sleep, because it gives you great energy too, and not 3, but 5. And you know what? I often let them send them to me because they go easily after 5 days. Well, yeah, I'm grateful for my dog and for my this and for that. No,
That's right.
you need to really think the roof you have, the light you have, indeed the sun. There's so many things, and our focus is so on the negativity and the news and all that. So thank you for sharing that. Wow, wonderful.
You know
Thank
what,
you.
Benjamin, I don't know if you realize this, you
Well,
probably do, but what you're saying is very Kabbalistic.
Yeah. Also.
oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
very
maybe.
Kabbalistic. I mean, that's
Okay.
really, so much of what Kabbalah is teaching has to do with changing a negative frame of mind. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much a part of
Mindset is so much, and it helps.
That
Yeah.
reminds me, I'll tell you a funny story.
And then we really have to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it last year or the year before? I think it was last year. I was we had a family friend, a couple of years older than I, who just died on Christmas Day. Okay, Jewish family, grew up with them together. Our brothers were very, very close. Our families had cottages on the beach together. So kind of grew up with this family, knew him very, very well. He was 50 years old and just perfectly healthy. Boom. And so my whole entire family was down here in Florida. I was the only one left in Canada, so they had a Shiva house. So I go to the Shiva house, and I hadn't seen them in many years, 8 years or something like that. And we reconnected, told old stories, kind of relived our childhoods together, and caught up on life. And around dinner time, they said to me, "Yeah, the rabbi's going to be here soon." I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean the rabbi?" "Oh, the Chabad bus is coming." I'm like, "You're Chabad? You're not very religious?" They're like, "Yeah, because of COVID, they were very anti-lockdowns and stuff. They had a fight with their synagogue, and they went to Chabad, and now they're big supporters of Chabad." So the rabbi comes, and the Chabad bus is always, they're kids. They're like 20 years old. They probably have 6 kids already, but they're 20, 21 years old. They're very young. And I hear David in the kitchen saying to the rabbis, I'm talking to the daughter, he says, "Rabbi, you're never going to believe it. Benjamin Dichter is here." Huh? Or so this rabbi comes in, like walking really fast. He comes up to me, grabs my shoulder, says, "It's you. It's really you. What am I missing here?" He says, "Oh, you don't know?" I said, "No, what?" He said, "We have 6,000 shuls around the world. Most of them, there's a few outliers, are telling stories about how you're the one Jew who spoke up for our right to daven during COVID.
Ah,
Because during the trucker convoy, there was a religious ceremony on Sunday. Every Sunday, the pastors would come up and do a thing. And the Chabad, one of the rabbis came to me during the thing. They were supporters, whatever. And I said, "Rabbi, please, please come to the service. You're more than welcome. Would love to have all of you here join us. We need as many communities to come together." So on Sunday, when I was giving a speech, making fun of the news, telling everybody what they lied about, making them joke, and we all got to come together, off to the left every weekend was a big part of the congregation in Ottawa, because I legitimately thought it's important. The government does not decide when we daven. Only God decides. And it was a surreal moment. I'm never gonna forget. And
That's
I'm so
so
thankful.
fantastic, because what you mentioned before, the neuroticism and the fear and anxiety of Jews, it was like a mobilization. I think Israel was on top with the control of what people could do. It was like totally collective consciousness that went nuts. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you. We can talk with you for hours.
I
This is so
really
nice.
appreciate it. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Super,
It's
super
fun.
wonderful. Thank you so much. And good luck. And I love to hear more. And I'm going to buy your book right away.
Same
Thank
here.
Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
We have a small request, and you probably know what it is about. But we have this very interesting situation that 91% of our returning viewers do not subscribe, but they are returning. So they must like it. And that would be great if that is you, if you will be so kind to subscribe, eventually leave a like if you like the video, or even leave a comment, that's even nicer, or have a request. That would be great to hear from you. But please support our work by subscribing. Thank you so very much. That would be such a favor to us.